Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back in time. But we're not going to see the grand marble temples or the bustling forums of Rome. At least not at first. We're going to a place a little grittier, a little more real. We're going to explore the daily life of a Roman gladiator. And let's be honest, if you were actually dropped into this world, the odds of you making it through the first day are slim. It was a tough, strange, and surprisingly complex existence. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support really does make a difference. Then while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world you knew is gone. It vanished in a cloud of dust in the sharp, terrifying clang of steel on steel. One moment, you were home, surrounded by the deep greens of a northern forest. The next, you were part of a long, shuffling line of captives, your wrists bound, your spirit heavy. The journey south is a blur of unfamiliar heat and a language that sounds like stones clattering together. You are a prisoner of war, one of the countless souls swept up by the relentless expansion of the Roman eagle. This is, by far, the most common way one ends up on this path. This isn't a choice, it's a consequence. You are now standing in a slave market in a provincial city, the air thick with the smell of sweat, unwashed bodies, and roasting nuts from a nearby stall. The sun beats down on your shoulders. The cruel, unfamiliar god. Men in clean tunics walk past, their eyes appraising you and the others in your line like livestock. They poke your arms, pry open your mouth to check your teeth, and force you to turn this way and that. You feel a deep, cold shame, but also a flicker of defiance that you struggle to keep hidden behind a mask of weary indifference. Then, a man stops in front of you. He is not dressed like a wealthy senator or a military officer. He is solid, muscular, with a face that looks like it's been carved from old wood. His eyes are shrewd, missing nothing. He doesn't just look at you, he assesses you. He walks a slow circle around you, his gaze calculating your height, the breadth of your shoulders, the strength in your legs. He grabs your arm, his grip like iron, and feels the muscle there. He nods, a small, almost imperceptible gesture, and begins a clip negotiation with the slave trader. You don't understand the words, but you understand the transaction. You have just been sold. Your new owner is what the Romans call a honeste, the proprietor of a gladiator school, or ludus, HES, a businessman. Then you are his latest, riskiest investment. He saw something in you, not just raw strength, but a certain resilience, a spark that suggests you might be worth the tremendous cost of training. He isn't looking for a farmhand or a domestic servant. He's looking for potential, for someone the crowds might one day pay to see. As you're led away from the market, you catch glimpses of the other captives he has purchased. They are a motley crew. They are others like you, warriors from distant lands with confusion and anger in their eyes. But there are also different types. You see a man with a resigned, hollowed-out look of a criminal condemned to the arena. His sentence is death, and this is just a more entertaining way for the state to carry it out. And perhaps, chained nearby, is someone who looks surprisingly Roman. This is a concept your mind struggles to grasp. Could someone from this powerful, conquering civilization end up here? Yes. Some are debtors, desperate men who have sold themselves into a contract for a set period, hoping to earn enough to pay their way out. This is a little-known fact of the gladiator world. It wasn't exclusively a slave's life. Free men could, and did, sign up. You can't fathom why anyone would choose this, trading freedom for a life of brutal discipline and the constant threat of death. You look at their faces, trying to see the story behind their presence here. It's a question that will puzzle you for a long time, and indeed, historians thousands of years from now will still be debating the exact ratio. The popular image is of the unwilling slave forced to fight, But the reality was more complex. Just how many gladiators were volunteers seeking fame and fortune versus those who were slaves or criminals is a topic of intense academic argument, with the numbers likely shifting dramatically throughout the centuries of the Roman Empire. Your journey ends before a large, formidable compound on the outskirts of the city. The walls are high. The gate is thick wood reinforced with iron. It looks more like a fortress or a prison than a school. As the heavy gate groans open, you are shoved inside, and it closes behind you with a deafening thud. The sounds of the city are muffled now, replaced by the rhythmic thwack of wood against wood, the grunts of exertion, and the distant shouts of an instructor. The air smells of sweat, damp earth, and something metallic. You have arrived at the ludus. Your old life is officially over. Your new one, as a gladiator in training, is about to begin. You don't know it yet, but you've just taken the first step into a world of bizarre rules, strange celebrity, and brutal reality. The heavy gate of the ludus slams shut, and you are thrust into a world that operates on a harsh, unwavering routine. Your first day is a blur of disorientation and systematic dehumanization. The first order of business is to strip you of your old identity, quite literally. You are forced to remove the tattered remnants of your old clothes, the last physical connection to the person you once were. These are tossed onto a pile to be burned or repurposed. You are left standing naked and vulnerable under the scrutinizing gaze of the guards. They douse you with a bucket of cold water, a rough and unceremonious bath, and then hand you a simple piece of clothing, the subliga column, a basic linen loincloth. This is your new uniform. It's a great equalizer. The captured chieftain from Germania and the petty thief from Rome now look exactly the same, exposed, anonymous, and owned. As you are being processed, you notice something on the shoulder of the man standing next to you. It's a mark, seared into his flesh. They brand, an intricate symbol you don't recognize. It's a chilling, permanent declaration of ownership. It's one of those details that gets lost in the heroic paintings on epic movies. The reality is that many who were brought here against their will, especially state-owned prisoners, were branded like cattle. It was a mark of shame and a practical tool to prevent escape. Who would shelter a man with the mark of the games on his skin? The sight of its ends a cold dread through you. Will they do that to you? It's a terrifying possibility. The Laniste owns you, body and soul, and he can mark his property as he sees fit. Finally, you are led to one of the small, cell-like rooms. The guard then bolts a heavy wooden door and shoves you inside. The space is tiny, barely large enough for 2 men to lie down. There's a raised stone platform that serves as a bed, and nothing else. No window. Just a small grill in the door that offers a sliver of a view of the courtyard. The air is cool and smells of damp stone and stale sweat. You sit on the cold slab. The silence in the cellar, stark contrast to the noise outside. This is your home now. The archaeological remains of Gladiator barracks, like the famous one in Pompeii, show rows of these small rooms. They are incredibly Spartan, but historians still debate their exact nature, the daily experience of living in them. Were they simply austere dormitories for a highly disciplined, athletic community? Not much different from a modern military barracks, or were they effectively prison cells, locked at night to maintain absolute control and prevent riots? Or escapes? The truth probably lies somewhere in between and likely varied from one ludus to another. Some schools might have been run with a slightly looser rein than others, depending on the law and the composition of his family. But for you, right now, as the heavy bolt slides shut on the outside of your door, it feels very much like a prison. You lie back on the stone, your head resting on your hands. The sounds of training have begun to die down as the sun sets. You can hear the low murmur of voices from other cells, the clatter of what might be dinner being prepared. You are exhausted, but sleep feels a long way off. You are at the absolute bottom of a brutal new world. Every instinct screams at you to fight, to run, to break down the door. But you are also a pragmatist. You survived the battlefield. You survived the march. You survived the slave market. You know when to conserve your strength. And so you lie there, listening, learning, and trying to understand the rules of this strange, deadly game you've been forced into. The first day is over. You survived. That, in itself, is a small, bitter victory. The next morning, you are roused from a restless sleep and herded into the main training yard with the other new arrivals. The TIR1s. The lioness taste ends before you, his arms crossed, his expression like granite. He is the absolute master of this domain, a figure who holds the power of life and death over you. He is a complex character, part businessman, part coach, part prison warden. A successful Honeste was often a former gladiator himself, a man who had survived the arena and used his knowledge and prize money to build a business. He is not necessarily cruel for the sake of it, but he is ruthlessly pragmatic. Your health, your training, your very life are all entries in his financial ledger. He doesn't address you directly. He speaks to the group as a whole, his voice sharp and commanding. A translator barks his words in your native tongue. This is your new family, he says, a familiar gladiator. This language is deliberate. By framing the ludus as a family, he is creating a powerful psychological structure. You are expected to be loyal to the school, to your brothers, and above all, to him, your new father figure. It's a twisted sort of paternalism, designed to foster discipline and a worked sense of belonging. Standing beside the Honeste are his key staff members. The most important is the head trainer, the doctor, or sometimes magister. He is an imposing figure, a veteran gladiator whose body is a testament to a long career in the arena. He carries a long wooden staff, a ludus, which is both a symbol of his authority and a tool for painful, immediate correction. He is the one who will be responsible for breaking you down and rebuilding you into a fighter. His gaze is even more intimidating than the Honeste's, because his is the world of daily pain and effort. You also meet the other members of this strange family. There are the guards, the custodians, who are responsible for security. They are a constant, watchful presence, ensuring there are no escapes or major fights within the barracks. There are the cooks, the armorer's custodians armor and the physician's medici, all cogs in this well-oiled machine. And then there are your fellow gladiators. You see them training in the yard, their bodies glistening with sweat. They are divided into groups based on their experience. The other TIR1s, like you, are kept separate, a class of awkward, frightened newcomers. Then there are the more experienced fighters, the veteran eye, who move with a confidence and economy of motion that seems impossible to you right now. And at the top of the hierarchy are the stars of the school, the primi pali first pulls, the champions who have survived many fights. They carry themselves with an air of authority and are treated with a mixture of reverence and fear by the others. The social structure of the ludus is rigid and unforgiving. You are at the very bottom. You will earn respect only through sweat, discipline, and, eventually, survival in the arena. This hierarchy is critical to love control for the Honeste, by creating intense internal competition, by making status something to be fought for. He keeps the gladiators focused on pleasing him and proving their worth. A little-known fact about this family is that some gladiators were able to have actual families of their own, while it was rare and depended heavily on the rules of the law to stay in the status of the gladiator. Some high-ranking, long-serving fighters were allowed to marry and have children. These families often lived in the community just outside the ludus, inscriptions on tombstones, commissioned by wives and children for their fallen gladiator husbands, provide heartbreaking evidence of these relationships. But this is a privilege so far beyond your current reality that it's almost unimaginable. The question of whether gladiators truly saw themselves as a familia is one historians still debate. Was it just a cynical label imposed by the owners? Or did a genuine sense of brotherhood and solidarity emerge from the shared trauma on discipline? The evidence, from tombstones celebrating loyal comrades to accounts of bitter rivalries, suggests it was both. It was a family bound by blood, both spilled and shared. As the Laniste finishes his speech, you look at the scarred faces of the veteran gladiators. They are the ones who have survived. They are the proof that it is possible to endure this life. You are now a part of their world, the new, unwelcome child in a brutal and demanding family. Your goal is simple: climb the ladder, survive long enough to earn the respect of your new brothers and the approval of your new father. After the initial shock of arrival and the disorienting introduction to your new family, the true business of the ludus begins. The Laniste didn't spend good money on you just to let you sit in a cell. This investment needs to be assessed, and its potential maximized. You, and a handful of other new arrivals are herded out of your cells and into a different part of the compound. This area is cleaner, quieter, and smells not of sweat and dust, but of dried herbs, pungent oils, and something vaguely medicinal. This is the infirmary, the Valeu de Inarium, and it is one of the most important places in the entire school. Waiting for you is a man who is the complete opposite of the grizzled trainers and hardened guards. He is older, with a calm, focused demeanor. He might be Greek, as many of the most respected doctors in the Roman world were. This is the medicus, the physician. He works for the Laniste, and his job is not necessarily to make you feel better, but to keep you functional. He is a master of human mechanics, a vital part of the business. A gladiator who can't fight is a worthless asset. You are told to strip. Once again, you stand exposed, but this time it's not for a display of power, but for a clinical, methodical evaluation. The doctor's examination is incredibly thorough. He is not just looking for obvious illnesses. He starts with your bones and joints. He runs his hands down your legs and arms, feeling the structure, pressing on old, faded scars from your previous life, asking you through a translator if they cause you pain. He makes you walk, then run in place. He has you squat, jump, and stretch. He is assessing your flexibility, your balance, your explosive power. He moves on to your muscles, prodding your quads, your thighs, your chest and back. He is not just checking for strength, but for symmetry and proportion. He might hand you a heavy stone weight and watch how you lift it, noting which muscles you engage. HES building a complete picture of your physical capabilities. Then comes the more intimate part of the exam. He listens to your breathing, placing an ear directly against your chest and back. He checks your eyesight, holding out fingers at a distance. He even, much to your surprise, looks at your teeth, a key indicator of overall health and nutrition in the ancient world. All the while, he is muttering to an assistant, who scratches notes onto a wax tablet. You are a collection of attributes: long reach, strong ankles, quick reflexes, good lung capacity. You are being broken down into a set of data points that will determine your entire future. This level of medical attention might be the best you've ever received in your life. In fact, it was likely some of the best care available in the entire Roman Empire. This is one of the great ironies of a gladiator's life. As a slave or a prisoner, your life was disposable. But as a gladiator, you became a high-value athletic investment. The famous physician Galen of Pergamon, one of the most brilliant medical minds of antiquity, spent a portion of his early career as a doctor at a gladiator school in Asia Minor. It was here that he honed his skills, since Roman religion generally forbade the dissection of human bodies. Treating the horrific wounds of gladiators gave Galen a unique, and often gruesome, window into human anatomy. He learned more about muscles, bones, and organs by patching up living fighters than he ever could have from just reading texts. The knowledge he gained in the ludus would form the basis of Western medical thought for over 1,000 years. But there is a specific, crucial purpose to this examination beyond just ensuring you're healthy. The doctor is casting you. Your body type will determine the style of gladiator you will be trained as. Are you tall, lean, and fast? You might be destined to become a ready Arias, the lightly armored, net and trident fighter. Are you stocky, powerful, with a low center of gravity? Perhaps you are suited to be a heavily armored dam. You are Milo or Seikad, or a walking fortress of muscle and bronze. The doctor is not just asking, can this man fight? He is asking, how should this man fight to be most effective and entertaining? This is a strange and little known aspect of the process. Your fate, your fighting style, your equipment, and ultimately your chances of survival are being decided for you based on the geometry of your skeleton and the fibers of your muscles. Historians still debate the extent of this specialized medical care. While a top-tier school that supplied gladiators for the Colosseum in Rome undoubtedly had the best doctors like Galen, was the same true for a small, provincial ludus in Britain or Gaul? It's likely the quality of care varied enormously. Some gladiators may have received world-class treatment, while others were patched up by little more than a company medic with a basic knowledge of setting bones and stitching wounds. Finally, the doctor finishes his assessment. He makes a final note on his tablet and has a quiet, decisive word with the l'honnête, who has been observing from the side. You don't understand the words, but you see the l'honnête nod. The decision has been made. You have passed the inspection. You are deemed a worthy investment. You are healthy enough, at least, to be broken down and rebuilt into a fighting machine. You are given back your loincloth and lead away, unaware that your entire professional identity has just been chosen for you by a man with cold hands and observant eyes. Now that your body has been catalogued and your future fighting style secretly decided, it's time to fuel the machine. You are laid from the infirmary, not to the training yard, but to a long, low silencing hall. This is the mess hall, the beating heart of the ludus where energy is consumed before it can be expended. The air is thick with the steam rising from large cauldrons, and the smell is not what you would expect. You might imagine warriors dining on roasted meats and hearty breads. The reality is far more mundane. You are handed a simple wooden bowl and a spoon, and you file past a cook who ladles a thick, grayish substance into your bowl. It looks like a porridge or a stew, a homogeneous mush of boiled grains and legumes. You find a spot on a long, rough-hewn wooden bench alongside other men. Some are new, like you, their faces a mixture of confusion and disgust. Others are veterans, their scarred faces impassive as they mechanically spoon the food into their mouths. There is no conversation, only the quiet scraping of spoons against bowls. You take your first tentative spoonful. It's bland, heavy, and utterly joyless. It's mostly barley, boiled to a thick paste, with some beans and lentils mixed in. This is the gladiator diet. This is the fuel that will power your transformation. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder even gave gladiators a nickname Hordeae, which literally means barley men. It wasn't meant as a compliment. It was a commentary on their humble, grain-heavy diet. This is the first major historical truth. You learn in the ludus the diet of a Roman gladiator was not the high-protein regimen of a modern athlete. It was overwhelmingly carbohydrate-based. Meat was a rare luxury, reserved perhaps for the night before a fight or as a special reward. Your daily existence is powered by cheap, calorie-dense plants. This wasn't just about saving the l'honnête money, although that was certainly a factor. This diet was strategic. The goal was not to create lean, chiseled physiques for an art gallery. The goal was to build bulk. And this is where a fascinating historical debate comes into play. Bioarchaeologists who have studied the remains of gladiators found in a cemetery in Ephesus have confirmed this diet through chemical analysis of their bones. The science is clear: they ate a lot of plants and very few animal products. But why? The obvious answer is economics. Barley is cheaper than beef. But a more intriguing theory suggests this high-carb diet was a deliberate choice for protection. The constant intake of carbohydrates would have helped gladiators pack on not just muscle, given with their intense training, but also a significant layer of subcutaneous fat. Think of it from the Law-A's perspective. A gladiator with a thick layer of fat over their muscles is better protected. A shallow cut from an opponent's sword will slice into this fatty layer. It will bleed, which looks very dramatic and exciting for the crowd, but it won't necessarily sever a critical muscle or tendon that would end the fight in the gladiator's usefulness immediately. This layer of fat acted as a buffer, a natural padding that protected the vital tissues underneath. It could make the difference between a superficial, showy wound and a career-ending injury. So as you sit there forcing down another spoonful of bland mush, you are literally building your own armor. Historians are still divided on whether this was the primary intention or just a happy side effect of a cheap diet, but the evidence for this fattening up strategy is compelling. But this plant-heavy diet created a serious problem: a severe lack of calcium. A diet without dairy or significant amounts of animal bone and meat would leave a warrior dangerously deficient in the very mineral needed for strong bones. Weak bones would lead to fractures, spelling disaster for both the gladiator and the Law-A's balance sheet. The Romans, in their practical and sometimes bizarre way, had a solution for this. After your meal, a different kind of drink is passed around. It's not water or cheap wine. It's a murky, grayish liquid. You watch the veterans down it without a second thought. Hesitantly, you take a sip. The taste is awful. It's chalky, bitter, and tastes faintly of smoke. This is your calcium supplement. Scientific analysis of those same gladiator bones from Ephesus showed shockingly high levels of strontium and calcium, consistent with the consumption of plant ash. This was their strange, ancient version of a nutritional supplement. They would burn plants, or perhaps even bones, to create an ash rich in minerals, which was then mixed with water or vinegar to create this tonic. It was a crude but effective way to fortify their skeletons. It's a weird, intimate detail that highlights the strange science that governed your new life. You were part of a highly controlled, long-term experiment in building the perfect fighting machine. You finish your bowl of barley and your cup of ash water. You feel full, bloated even, but not satisfied. You look at your own body, then at the thick torsos of the veteran fighters. You're beginning to understand. You are not just being trained. You are being cultivated. Like a crop, your body is being remade from the inside out. One bland, strategic meal at a time. The gray light of dawn filters through the small grill in your cell door. You're awoken not by a gentle sunrise, but by the harsh, metallic sound of a bolt being drawn. A guard barks a single command. It's time to get up. There's no time for slow waking. The day starts now, and it starts fast. You file out of the barracks with the other men, your body still heavy with sleep and the starchy meal from last night. The morning air is cool, carrying the scent of damp earth from the training yard. This is where your day truly begins. You don't immediately pick up a weapon. The first part of your training is conditioning, led by a secondary instructor, a former gladiator with a permanent limp. You are put through a grueling series of exercises designed to build stamina and draw strength. You run endless laps around the perimeter of the yard until your lungs burn and your legs feel like lead. You do exercises that look remarkably modern: push-ups, squats, lunges. You lift heavy stones, hoist sandbags, and climb ropes. The goal is to push you past your limits, to break down your muscles so they can be rebuilt stronger. There is no encouragement, only the rhythmic count of the instructor and the occasional sharp crack of his wooden staff against the back of someone who is slacking. After what feels like an eternity, the conditioning phase ends. Now, and only now, are you introduced to your first piece of weaponry. But it's not the gleaming steel you might have imagined. You are led to a row of thick wooden posts, each about the height of a man. set firmly into the ground. This is the palace, and it is to be your most intimate partner for the foreseeable future. A guard hands you your training equipment around. Wicker shield, clay-bus, and a wooden sword. The rudies. This isn't the light, ceremonial wooden sword that will one day signify freedom. This training rudies is deliberately oversized and much heavier than a real gladius. Some historical sources suggest it was double the weight of its metal counterpart. The shield, too, is heavy and unwieldy. The logic is simple and brutal. If you can train for hours with this heavy, clumsy equipment, a real sword and shield will feel as light as a feather in your hands when the time comes. Your instructor, a hardened veteran, demonstrates the basic movements. Your first lesson is not in attack, but in posture, the way you stand, the way you hold the shield, the angle of your body. It's all about protecting your vital organs, presenting the smallest possible target, and maintaining your balance. You spend what feels like hours just standing there, your arm trembling under the weight of the shield, while the instructor circles you, barking corrections and occasionally shoving you to test your footing. Then the drills begin. You face the palace. This inanimate post is your first opponent. You must learn to approach it, to strike it, to defend against its imaginary blows. The instructor demonstrates a sequence of movements: a shield block, a thrust, a sidestep, another thrust. Your job is to replicate it, over and over and over again. Your movements are clumsy. You overextend your thrusts, leaving yourself open. Your shield wobbles. The heavy wooden sword feels like a club in your hand. The thwack of wood hitting wood fills the air, a monotonous, hypnotic rhythm. You strike the post again and again, your shoulders burning, your hands blistering around the hilt of the wooden sword. The instructor is relentless. He doesn't care about your fatigue. He is looking for precision, for economy of movement. Every wasted motion, every ounce of squandered energy could be a fatal mistake in the arena. This focus on the palace is a core tenet of gladiator training, mentioned by writers like V. Gladiators. It was the fundamental building block of all combat skill. Before you could face a living, thinking opponent, you had to master the pure mechanics of the fight against an unmoving target. But here lies a subtle, often overlooked point that historians still debate: what exactly were they being taught to kill as efficiently as possible, or were they being trained to put on a good show? The answer is likely both, and this duality creates a confusing tension in your training. Your instructor screams at you for a sloppy strike that might get you killed, but he also praises a move that, while not the most efficient, is visually impressive. You are learning a deadly dance, a choreographed violence designed to be both lethal and entertaining. As the sun climbs higher, the work gets harder. You are paired with another Tyrell, another novice. Your task is 2 practice blocks and simple parries. The heavy wooden swords clack against each other. The impacts reverberate up your arm. You are not trying to hurt each other, not yet. This is about timing, about reading an opponent's movement, about integrating the shield and the sword into a single, fluid system of defense and attack. It's frustrating. You're slow, you're tired, and the man opposite you is just as awkward. This repetitive, almost mind-numbing drill is the reality of your day. The movies show dramatic, high-stakes sparring sessions. The reality is this hour spent in front of a wooden post, every muscle screaming in protest. It's not glorious. It's not exciting. It's a grind. A little-known fact is that some gladiators were so skilled that they became instructors themselves, even while still active fighters. The best of the best, the Dr. S, were highly respected and well-compensated members of the law and Estes staff. The man screaming at you today might have been a champion in the arena just a few years ago. He knows exactly what it takes to survive, and he is trying to hammer that knowledge into you, one painful, repetitive lesson at a time. The morning is not even over, and you are already exhausted, but there is no rest. The palace awaits. Days bleed into weeks. The punishing routine of conditioning and palace drills becomes the rhythm of your life. Your body is changing. The starchy diet and relentless exercise are adding layers of muscle and fat to your frame. Your hands are calloused. Your muscles ache with a deep, permanent soreness, but you are getting stronger. You can now swing the heavy wooden sword without your arm feeling like it will fall off. And the wicker shield feels less like a burden and more like an extension of your body. Onboarding. The routine is broken. After the initial conditioning, you and the other novices are called to the center of the yard. The lawnist is there, along with the head trainer, the doctor, and the physician who first examined you. A cart has been wheeled out, laden with an intimidating assortment of bronze, leather, and steel. It's a collection of helmets, greaves, shields, and weapons. This is the day you are assigned your specialty. The decision has, of course, already been made. Your body type, your reflexes, the cool assessment of the doctor all have contributed to this moment. You are not given a choice. You are simply told what you will become. The doctor calls out a name and points to one of the novices. A tall, slender man with quick feet. He is handed a long trident, a weighted net, and a dagger. He is to be a Gladiator, a net fighter. His only armor will be a leather shoulder guard galer and an arm guard manica. He will rely on speed, agility, and distance to trap his heavily armed opponents. He looks at the flimsy equipment with a mixture of confusion and fear. His survival depends on not getting caught. Another man, one of the stocky, powerful ones, is called forward. He is handed a large, rectangular shield scutum, a short sword, gladius, and a helmet with a distinctive fish-like crest. He is to be a M. You are mellow, named for a type of saltwater fish. His style will be about steady, relentless pressure, using his massive shield as a wall and seeking an opening for his deadly short sword. Then, it's your turn. The lawnist looks you over one last time, then nods to the doctor. Based on your physical assessment, perhaps you are well-rounded, neither exceptionally fast nor overwhelmingly strong, but possessing good stamina. You are designated as a specific type. Let's say you are chosen to be a THRAX or a Thracian. You are handed your new set of tools. Your shield is small and square parmula. It feels dangerously inadequate compared to the scutum of the M. You are mellow. Your helmet is a full-faced masterpiece of bronze, with a distinctive griff and crest on top. It offers total protection for your head, but severely restricts your vision and hearing. And your weapon is the most peculiar of all, a short, curved sword called a sika. Unlike the straight-bladed gladius designed for thrusting, the sika is a slashing weapon, designed to hook around an opponent's shield and find flesh. You are now part of a complex and carefully balanced system of rock, paper, scissors. The different gladiator types were almost always pitted against specific opponents to create a compelling and balanced fight. The heavily armored M. You are mellow would often face the lightly armored, but agile ready Arias, or the similarly equipped THRAX. It was a classic contest of speed versus power, or a mirror match of similar styles. The crowd loved these established pairings. They knew the strengths and weaknesses of each type, and it allowed them to appreciate the skill and strategy involved, not just the raw violence. This is a key point often lost in modern depictions. Gladiator combat was not a chaotic free-for-all with random weapons. It was a highly regulated martial art with distinct classes and specialties, much like modern combat sports, and the sheer variety is mind-boggling. There were dozens of types, some common, some incredibly obscure. There was the Saikut, or a pursuer specifically designed to fight the ready Arias, with a smooth, streamlined helmet to avoid being snagged by the net. There was the Hoplomachus, who fought with a spear and a small round shield, like a Greek hoplite. There were even a few bizarre and, frankly, niche roles that historians still puzzle over. For instance, the scissor, who had a short sword in one hand and a strange, crescent-bladed weapon on his other arm that looked like, well, a pair of scissors. How this was used effectively is still a matter of academic debate. Was it for disarming an opponent, or for delivering a specific type of wound? One of the more peculiar and less known types was the EQs, who started the fight on horseback, armed with a lance and a small shield. After an initial mounted clash where they would throw their lances, they would dismount and continue the fight on foot with their swords. It was a kind of ancient biathal of combat. As you stand there, holding your new equipment, a new phase of your training begins. You no longer train with the entire group of novices. You are now part of a smaller cohort of aspiring Thracians. Your instructor, the Dr. Th. Ray Kum, is a specialist. He was likely a TA or AX himself, a veteran who survived long enough to retire and teach. His job is to teach you the unique secrets of your new trade, how to use the small shield to deflect rather than absorb blows, how to peer through the tiny eye holes of your helmet, and most importantly, how to wield the wickedly curved Sika. The general training is over. The specialized training has begun. You have a profession now. You are no longer just a prisoner or a slave. You are a THRAX in training, and your survival now depends on mastering a very specific and very deadly set of skills. You spend your first few hours with your new equipment feeling like a clumsy child playing dress-up. The helmet is the first and most immediate challenge. The moment you lower the bronze faceplate, your world shrinks. Your vision is reduced to two small eye slits, offering a narrow, tunnel-like view of the world. Your peripheral vision is gone completely. You have to turn your entire head to see anything to your left or right. The sound is even more disorienting. The roar of the training yard is muffled into a dull, underwater hum. Your own breathing becomes a loud, rasping sound inside the metal shell, a constant companion to your thoughts. The helmet is heavy, and the strain on your neck and shoulders is immense. You feel claustrophobic, isolated, and incredibly vulnerable, which is the exact opposite of what you'd expect from a piece of armor designed to protect your head. Your shield, the small square parmula, feels just as inadequate. When you see the towering scutum of the MUR Mellow trainees, a shield that can protect a man from his shoulders to his knees, you feel a pang of genuine fear. Your little parmula can only protect your torso if you hold it perfectly, leaving your legs and arms wide open. The instructor screams at you, teaching you that this shield isn't for hiding behind. It's an active tool, meant for parrying, deflecting, and punching. This brings you to a fundamental, and often misunderstood, truth about gladiatorial armor. It was not designed for maximum protection. If the goal was simply to keep the fighter alive as long as possible, they would have been covered head to toe in steel, like medieval knights. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was to create a spectacle. The armor was part of the costume, designed to create a specific look and, more importantly, a specific type of fight. The armor was strategically incomplete. It protected the most vital areas: the head, the shins with greaves, and one arm with a manica, but it deliberately left other areas exposed. The chest, the back, the thighs. This was by design. It ensured that fights would involve bloodshed. It created vulnerable targets that a skilled opponent could exploit. A fully armored fighter slowly chipping away at another fully armored fighter is boring. HRIX darting an undoubt, trying to slash at the exposed thigh of a MUR Miller while dodging his powerful thrusts. That is drama. The armor is there to prolong the fight, not to prevent injury entirely. It ensures the action is thrilling and the wounds are visible, all for the entertainment of the crowd. Historians have long debated the precise balance between protection and showmanship in gladiatorial equipment. The consensus is that it tilted heavily towards the latter. The ornate crests, the polished bronze, the elaborate decorations found on surviving helmets, these were not strictly necessary for survival. They were theatrical. They helped the audience distinguish between fighter types from a distance and added to the grandeur of the event. As you train, you begin to understand this cruel logic. You learn to move in a new way. A crouched, almost crab-like stance to protect your exposed legs. You learn to rely on footwork and agility. Because you can't afford to take a direct hit on your tiny shield, the helmet forces you to rely on other senses, to anticipate an opponent's move by the shift in their body language rather than seeing it clearly. And then there's the oddity of the single arm guard, the manica. It's a padded, quilted sleeve, sometimes reinforced with leather or metal scales, that covers your sword arm. Why only one arm? This is another one of those quirky details. Your shield arm is already protected by the shield. Your weapon arm is the one that extends, the one that is most exposed during an attack. So, it gets the extra protection. It's a beautifully logical, if slightly strange, piece of targeted protection. A little-known fact is that these manicae were incredibly varied. Some archaeological finds suggest they were simple padded linen, while others were complex, articulated pieces of metal armor. It likely depended on the wealth of the ludus and the status of the gladiator. You practice for hours, the heavy, vision-restricting helmet giving you a constant headache. You stumble. You misjudge distances. You leave yourself open to imaginary attacks. The instructor is merciless, pointing out every flaw, every moment of hesitation. He forces you to wear the full kit for the entire session, so your body learns to accept it as a second skin. It's a painful, frustrating process. You see the Ready Your Eyes trainees practicing with their nets, their movements free and unencumbered, and you feel a flash of envy. But then you see them practicing how to escape a fallen net, their greatest fear, and you realize every specialty has its own unique terror. By the end of the day, when you are finally allowed to remove the helmet, the sudden return of light and sound is almost overwhelming. You have a deep red mark indented on your forehead, and your neck aches profoundly. The cool air on your sweaty face feels like a blessing. You look at the bronze helmet sitting on the ground. It is not a tool of salvation. It is a mask, a cage, a piece of theater, and you must learn to perform in it, or you will die in it. As you grow more accustomed to your specialized equipment, your training evolves. The solo drills against the palace and the simple paired exercises become more complex. Now, you begin to spar, not the all-out, frenzied combat of the arena, but controlled, disciplined bouts against your fellow trainees, overseen by the watchful eyes of the doctor. It is in these sessions that you learn the most important lesson of all. This is not just a fight. It is a game with a strict set of rules. You might imagine the arena as a lawless space where people enter and only one leaves, but that's a dramatic oversimplification. The reality was much more structured. Standing in the training yard, then later, in the real arena, is a figure you must learn to respect as much as your opponent, the referee. In the ludus, this role is often played by the senior doctor or another experienced veteran. In the grand amphitheaters, they were known as the summarudis, named for the senior bit on or staff they carried. There were often two of them in the sand, one to watch each fighter. Their word was law. They could pause the fight, separate the combatants if they were locked in a stalemate, or declare a winner. They were there to ensure the fight followed the established rules and, just as importantly, remained entertaining. During your first real sparring session, you experience this directly. You are pitted against another T by X. Both of you are clumsy, encased in your new armor, peering through your helmets. You trade a few awkward blows. Then, in a moment of frustration, you instinctively try to kick your opponent's legs out from under him. Immediately, a sharp cam in rings out. The doctor steps in, tapping you firmly on the chest with his long wooden staff. He launches into a tirade, explaining that certain moves are forbidden. No biting, no eye gouging, and in this particular pairing, no kicking. Why, it's not proper for the style. It's not what the crowd pays to see. You quickly learn that each pairing of gladiator types had its own specific set of regulations. You also learn about fouls. If a fighter intentionally and repeatedly broke the rules, the referee could intervene. He might warn the offender or even stop the match. It was about maintaining a certain standard of combat. One of the most surprising rules you learn is what to do when you lose your weapon. Your instinct is to panic or to start brawling with your fists. Those are wrong. If you are disarmed, the correct procedure is to raise a single finger, a gesture of appeal to the referee. This signals a temporary pause in the action. The referee might halt the fight for a moment, allowing you to retrieve your weapon, especially if the crowd is enjoying the match and wants to see it continue. This wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a part of the sport's etiquette. Then, there is the issue of surrender. If you were overwhelmed, wounded, or exhausted, you could give up. The accepted signal was, again, raising a finger, the ad digitum. It was an admission of defeat, a plea for mercy, placing your fate in the hands of the match's sponsor. This concept is alien to you, a former warrior taught to fight to the last breath. But, in the arena, it is a crucial, life-saving rule. Acknowledging defeat was not cowardice, it was a professional's calculated decision to live to fight another day. Historians still debate the nuances of these rules, as few comprehensive rulebooks have survived. Much of what we know is pieced together from depictions in art, stray comments in literature, and the logic of the pairings themselves. For example, was it illegal for already Arius to simply drop his net and attack with his trident from the start? The evidence suggests yes. That would be cheating the audience of the spectacle of the net throw. The rules were there to enforce the drama. A particularly fascinating and little-known aspect of the rules involved the environment itself. The sand of the arena, the arena, was not just a floor. It was a crucial part of the event. Attendants would constantly rake the sand during and between matches. Why? For a few reasons. It absorbed blood, keeping the surface from becoming too slick and dangerous. But more importantly, it allowed the audience to see the action clearly. The footprints, the drag marks from a shield, the splatter of blood all told a story in the sand. A clean surface was a fresh page for the next chapter of violence. Some accounts even mention that different colored sands were sometimes used, perhaps to enhance the visual spectacle. You also learn about the subtle interactions with the referee. He isn't just an impartial observer, he's part of the show. A good gladiator knew how to play to the ref, how to subtly appeal for a brief rest, or how to draw his attention to a foul by an opponent. It was a silent language of nods, gestures, and body language. A fight could be paused for technical reasons, like a piece of armor coming loose. The referee would stop the action. The gladiator would calmly fix his strap, and then the fight would resume. This all added to the tension and gave the fighters and the audience a moment to catch their breath. As your sparring sessions continue, you begin to internalize these rules. You stop thinking like a soldier in a chaotic battle and start thinking like a professional athlete in a regulated sport. You learn the rhythm of the fight, the engagement, the break, the appeal. You learn that victory isn't just about overpowering your opponent. It's about outsmarting him within a complex web of regulations designed to make your struggle as compelling as possible. Your life doesn't just depend on your strength and skill, but on your understanding of the game. The training yard is a world of structured violence and relentless physical exertion. But when the sun sets and the weapons are stored away, you are plunged into another arena, one with its own subtle rules and dangers. The barracks. After a long day of drills, you and the other gladiators retreat to the communal living quarters. This is where the hierarchies and social dynamics of the ludus, established in the yard, play out in a more intimate and, sometimes, more dangerous way. You share your small, stone cell with one or two other men. There is no privacy. You hear every sigh, every nightmare-fueled whimper, every whispered conversation. The bonds you form here can be a source of immense strength or a fatal weakness. The man sleeping on the bunk next to you is your comrade, your classmate, your brother in arms. He is also your competitor. You might be called upon to spar with him tomorrow, or, in the grim reality of the games, even fight him in the arena. This creates a tense, complicated social fabric. Friendships are forged in the shared misery of training. You learn to trust the man who helps you adjust a stubborn strap on your armor, or who shares a piece of bread he managed to save from dinner. You might find a mentor in an older, more experienced gladiator who offers a quiet word of advice after a particularly brutal training session. These alliances are crucial for your sanity and survival, but the barracks are also a place of friction and rivalry. The ludus is a deeply hierarchical society. At the top are the primus palace, the first pole gladiators. These are the veterans, the champions, the stars of the school. They have proven themselves in the arena multiple times. They get the best food, the most comfortable cells relatively speaking, and the respect or fear of everyone else. Their word is law within the barracks. A quiet nod of approval from a primus palace can make your life easier. A look of disdain can make it a living hell. As a Tiro, a novice, you are at the very bottom. You are expected to be deferential, to stay out of the way, and to endure the casual cruelties that are part of breaking in a new recruit. You might be given the worst chores, or be the butt of jokes. It's a system designed to test your resilience and your temperament. Can you handle the pressure without snapping? A gladiator who can't control his temper in the barracks is a gladiator who will lose his cool in the arena, and that is a fatal flaw. The social life is not just about survival, it's also about building a reputation. Your behavior in the barracks is observed. Are you disciplined? Are you respectful? Do you carry yourself with a certain quiet confidence? The lawnist and the doctoress notice these things. Your reputation within the ludus can influence the opportunities you get. One of the most debated aspects of life in the barracks is the nature of the relationships between gladiators. Were they a true band of brothers, a familia gladiatii, as they were sometimes called, or was it a dog-eat-dog environment where everyone was out for themselves? The evidence suggests it was both. Inscriptions on tombstones show that gladiators oft unformed bonds. It was common for a gladiator to commission a memorial for a fallen comrade, referring to him as a dear friend or brother. They had professional guilds, or collegiae, which acted as burial societies, ensuring their members received a proper funeral, a matter of huge importance in the Roman world. This points to a deep sense of community and shared identity. They were outcasts, living on the edge of society, and they found solidarity in their shared fate. But at the same time, competition was fierce. There were only a limited number of top spots. Everyone wanted to be the primus palace. This professional jealousy could lead to bitter rivalries, arguments, and even violence within the barracks. A wise gladiator learned to navigate these treacherous social waters carefully. A little known and fascinating aspect of your social life involves contact with the outside world. While you are largely confined to the ludus, you are not completely cut off. You hear news from the guards. Occasionally, you might see fans or gamblers hanging around the gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of their favorite fighters, and you become aware of your own budding reputation outside the walls. You hear whispers that a graffito praising one of your sparring partners was seen on a tavern wall. This is your first taste of the strange celebrity that awaits a successful gladiator. In the quiet of your cell at night, you talk with your cellmate. You don't speak of home, that's a pain too deep to touch. Instead, you talk about the training, about the different fighting styles, about the veterans you admire. You dissect the day's sparring sessions, replaying moves in your mind. You are becoming a student of the game. These quiet conversations are where you learn the unwritten rules, the gossip of the school, and the stories of the fighters who came before you. You learn which guards are cruel and which are fair, which rations are best to eat first, and which veterans' advice is worth listening to. The barracks are a microcosm of the world outside, but with the stakes raised to life and death. You must learn to fight for your life in the sand, but you must first learn to live with your family in the stone cells. It is a world of camaraderie and competition, of shared respect and simmering resentment. Surviving the day's training is one thing, surviving the night's politics is another. Life in the ludus settles into a relentless, monotonous cycle. Wake, train, eat, sleep. Every muscle in your body is in a constant state of protest. Your mind is saturated with fighting techniques, rules, and the ever-present stress of survival. In this high-pressure environment, even a small break in the routine feels like a monumental holiday. And you do get them, though they are rare and strictly controlled. These are your rest days. A rest day doesn't mean you get to sleep and unwound around. The discipline of the ludus never truly relaxes. However, the grueling physical training is suspended. The rhythmic thwack of wooden swords and the trainer's harsh shouts fall silent. The sudden quiet in the training yard is both a relief and slightly unsettling. On these days, you are given time for what the Romans considered essential maintenance for a high-performance athlete recovery. Your morning might begin with a trip to the ludus' own small bathos. It's not the grand, marble-clad public therme of the city, but the functional, steamy space. Here, you can soak your aching muscles in hot water, a luxury that feels almost divine. Attendants, often slaves themselves, are on hand to administer massages. This isn't a gentle, relaxing spa treatment. It's a deep, sometimes painful, sports massage designed to work out the knots in your muscles and improve circulation. They use oils infused with herbs, the scent filling the steamy air. This practice, known as undisturbed, was a critical part of Roman athletic care. After the baths and massages, your day is relatively unstructured, but your freedom is an illusion. You are still a prisoner. You might be allowed to spend time in the main courtyard, mending your personal gear, stitching a strap on your training sandals, or oiling a piece of leather. It's a quiet, meditative task that allows your mind to wander for the first time in weeks. You can also engage in games of chance. Dice were incredibly popular throughout the Roman world, and gladiators were no exception. You might see a small group of veterans huddled in a corner, rolling bone dice on a worn leather cloth, betting small trinkets or favors. It's a way to pass the time, to feel a flicker of control over your own fortune, even if it's just in a game. You watch them, learning the social codes, knowing that, as a tyro, you are not yet welcome in their circle. This limited free time is when you truly observe the social ecosystem of the barracks. You see the Primus Palace holding court, surrounded by his admirers. You see small groups forming based on their gladiator type, the Thracians sticking together, the Radiarii sharing a joke. You see the loners, the men who keep to themselves, their faces masks of grim determination. But what about leaving the compound? Could you ever just go for a walk in the city? The answer, for almost everyone, is a resounding no. You are a valuable and dangerous asset. The Laniste is not about to risk his investment wandering off. The high walls and guarded gates are a constant reminder of your status. However, there were exceptions, and this is where the historical picture gets more complex. A superstar gladiator, a true champion and crowd favorite, might be granted a day pass under heavy guard. It was a calculated risk. Letting a famous fighter be seen in public was great for publicity. It built his brand and increased the hype for the next games. He might be taken to a specific tavern, nor allowed to meet with a wealthy admirer, but he would never be truly free. Guards would be with him every step of the way. For a novice like you, such a privilege is an impossible dream. Your world is confined to the space within these walls. This is a point of some debate among historians. How strict was the confinement? Did it vary based on the gladiator status, slave versus free volunteer, or the security level of the ludus? Some evidence, like graffiti and legal texts, suggests that gladiators had more interaction with the outside world than the prison-like barracks would imply. They could sometimes receive mail, own personal items, and even have visitors, though these visits would be heavily supervised. A little-known curiosity is the existence of female gladiators, or gladiatresses. They were rare, oft untreated as an exotic novelty, and their living situation is almost a complete mystery to historians. Were they housed separately? Did they follow the same brutal routine? The scattered references leave more questions than answers. Your rest day offers another small luxurious light improvement in the food. The endless barley mush might be supplemented with some vegetables, a piece of fruit, or on a truly special occasion, a sliver of cheese. It's a small comfort, but in your Spartan existence, it feels like a feast. As the sun begins to set on your day of freedom, a sense of melancholy might settle over you. The brief respite only serves to highlight the harshness of your everyday reality. Tomorrow, the shouting and the relentless drills will begin again. You look up at the high walls, at the sliver of sky visible from the courtyard. You can hear the distant sounds of the city, the rumble of carts, the call of a merchant, the laughter of children. It's a world you can hear but cannot touch. Your rest day is over. It was not a taste of freedom, but a carefully managed tool to keep you in fighting shape. It was just another part of the business of the arena. The daily grind of training, eating, and sleeping can make you forget the ultimate purpose of this life. You get lost in the details, mastering a new footwork drill, learning to anticipate your sparring partner's feint. But then, one day, a different kind of energy sweeps through the ludus. A well-dressed man, an assistant to a local magistrate or a wealthy politician, arrives at the gates. He meets with the law and stay in his private office for hours. When he leaves, a new notice is posted in the yard. The city is hosting games. Munir, in a month's time. Suddenly, everything changes. The training intensifies. The air crackles with a new tension. This is what it has all been for. The lawn is Tay, who has been a distant, intimidating figure, is now ever present in the yard, his shrewd eyes watching every sparring match. HES, no longer just a schoolmaster, he is a businessman preparing his product for market. You are about to become personally acquainted with the cold economics of the arena. A gladiator show was an incredibly expensive affair, usually sponsored by a politician or the emperor himself. This sponsor, the editor, would contract with one or more lawn state to provide the fighters. The negotiation that just took place was a business deal, pure and simple. The lawn estate would rent out his gladiators for the event. The price for each fighter was based on their rank, experience, and popularity. They too, like you, fighting in your first match, would be at the bottom of the price scale. You are an unknown quantity, a cheap opening act. The seasoned veterans, the primi poli, would command enormous fees. Their names on the fight card would be a major draw for the public. This is where the financial risk for the lawn estate becomes clear. He has spent a fortune on you, your purchase price, your housing, your food, your medical care, your training. He is now hoping to get a return on that investment. The rental fee is his profit, but there's a catch, a grim one. The contract would stipulate a second, much higher price to be paid if the gladiator was killed or seriously maimed during the fight. This was, in effect, an insurance policy for the lawn estate. If you survive the match, he gets the rental fee. If you die, the editor has to buy your damaged contract outright, compensating the lawn estate for the total loss of his asset. This sounds morbid, and it is, but it had a fascinating uncounterintuitive effect. It made gladiator death less common than you might think. The editor had a huge financial incentive to keep the fighters alive. A show where half the cast was killed would be ruinously expensive. This is one of the biggest misconceptions about the games. It wasn't always a fight to the death. More often than not, it was a fight to first blood or to surrender. A good, clean fight where both gladiators walked out alive was the ideal outcome for everyone's budget. Historians still argue about the exact mortality rates. Some studies of gladiator cemeteries suggest a rate of around 1 in 10 per fight, while others propose it could be as high as 1 in 4, especially during later periods of the empire or in games sponsored by particularly bloodthirsty emperors. The odds likely vary dramatically depending on the time, place, and the scale of the event. As the games approach, you become aware of your own value. The Loniste might pair you in a sparring match against a more experienced fighter, not for training, but as an audition. He's trying to decide which gladiators to offer for the upcoming Mun era. He needs to assemble a good card with a mix of styles and experience levels. He needs exciting matchups. Will he put your THRAX style against a MUR Milo, or perhaps another THRAX for a symmetrical? Technical about these decisions are not about fairness, they are about creating the most marketable spectacle. A strange and little-known part of the business was the leasing of training staff. A wealthy editor in a city without a major ludus might not just rent the gladiators, but also the experienced doctoress to come and provide a last-minute training camp for local fighters or criminals condemned to the arena. The expertise of the ludus was a rentable commodity. You also become aware of the betting. Gambling was a massive part of the games. Outside the walls of the ludus, odds were already being set. Professional gamblers, the Apotsoli, would try to get inside in formation. They might try to bribe a guard or a stable hand to find out who is looking sharp in training, or if a champion is nursing a secret injury. Your performance in the yard is no longer just about your own survival. It's tied to the flow of money throughout the city. The pressure is immense. You are no longer just training for your life. You are training for your boss's bottom line. Every mistake you make in the yard feels magnified. A clumsy parry or a moment of hesitation could be the thing that convinces the Loniste to leave you behind, to deem you not yet ready. And while that might mean you avoid the immediate danger of the arena, it also means you remain a tyro, stuck at the bottom of the hierarchy, your chance at glory and freedom indefinitely postponed. The notice in the yard lists the pairings for the upcoming games. You scan the list, your heart pounding, and then you see it. Your name, or at least the name given to you in the ludus. Next to it, the designation THRAX. And next to that, the name of your opponent. It's real. You have been chosen. You are on the program. For the Loniste, it's a calculated business risk. For you, it's a death sentence or a ticket to a new life. The night before the games is unlike any other night in the ludus. The usual tense quiet of the barracks is replaced by a strange, almost surreal atmosphere. This evening is for the Sinoli Bera, the free dinner. It is a traditional feast given to the gladiators who are scheduled to fight the next day. It's part public relations event, part last meal. You and the other chosen fighters are bathed, oiled, then given clean tunics to wear. You are then led, under guard, out of the familiar confines of the ludus to a public hall or a large dining room in a wealthy patron's villa. The change of scenery is jarring. For the first time in months, you are surrounded by civilians. The room is filled with a bizarre mix of people. The editor, sponsoring the games, his wealthy friends, local politicians, and a throng of morbidly curious spectators and gamblers. The feast itself is a stark contrast to your daily barley mush. The tables are laden with foods you had all but forgotten: roasted meats, exotic seafood, fine bread, fruits, and, most importantly, wine. You are encouraged to eat and drink your fill. For the sponsors in the public, this is a chance to see the combatants up close, to inspect the merchandise before the show. They walk among the tables, staring at you. They comment on your physique, your scars, your perceived demeanor. That one looks fierce. You might overhear. This one looks afraid. The gamblers are the most intense, their eyes cold and calculating as they try to get a final read on your condition before placing their bets. It is a deeply unsettling experience. You are on display, a specimen to be gawked at. Some gladiators react with bravado, laughing loudly, eating with gusto, and playing the part of the fearless warrior. Others, like you, might retreat into a stony silence, focusing on the food, trying to block out the intrusive stares and the noise. Your mind is a whirlwind of emotions. The rich food is a delight. but it sits heavy in a stomach knotted with anxiety. The wine could dull your fear, but you know you can't afford to be anything less than sharp tomorrow. This is also a chance to size up your opponent. He is sitting somewhere across the room, going through the same strange ritual. You might lock eyes for a moment, a silent acknowledgement of your shared grim fate. There is no animosity, just a cold, professional understanding. Tomorrow, you will try to defeat him. Tonight, you are brothers in this bizarre spectacle. Historians have different interpretations of the seemingly bara. Was it a genuine act of generosity, a final moment of pleasure before potential death, or was it a cynical marketing ploy designed to hype the games and give the gamblers one last look? The truth, as always, is probably a bit of both. It served the psychological needs of the public and the gladiators simultaneously. Some fighters, according to writers like Plutarch, used this final meal not to indulge, but to their friends and family about their affairs, should they not return. A little-known aspect of this evening involves the superstitions that swirled around the fighters. Fans might try to touch a gladiator for good luck. Others might try to collect anything that had been near a fighter, believing it held some of his power. The line between celebrity and object of morbid fascination was incredibly thin. As you eat, you try to focus. You block out the noise. You think about your training. You visualize the moves your doctor drilled into you, the way you are supposed to use your small shield, the specific angle for a successful strike with your curved sika. Your mind races through a dozen different scenarios for the fight tomorrow. What if a GS faster than you anticipated? What if your helmet is knocked askew? What if you slip on the sand? The lawn stays there, of course, circulating among the wealthy guests. Ever the salesman, he points you out, perhaps boasting about your strength and the quality of his training. You're his product, and this is his final sales pitch. He wants the crowd to be excited to see you. A good performance, even from a novice, reflects well on his school. Eventually, the feast winds down. The spectators, having had their fill of food and morbid curiosity, begin to depart. You and the other gladiators are rounded up by the guards. The brief, strange excursion into the outside world is over. You are marched back through the dark, quiet streets to the ludus. Back in your cell, the silence is profound. The rich food and wine do little to soothe your nerves. Sleep seems impossible. The reality of the morning is now unavoidable. Tomorrow, you will step out of the training yard and onto the sand of a real arena. You will wear real armor and carry a real, sharpened steel weapon. You will face an opponent who is just as trained, just as desperate, and just as determined to survive as you are. You lie on your stone bunk, the echoes of the feast still ringing in your ears, and you wait for the dawn. The morning of the games arrives not with the gradual dawn, but with a jolt of adrenaline. Long before the sun is up, the ludus is a hive of activity. There is no training today. The entire focus is on preparation for the main event. You are given a small, simple breakfast enough to provide energy, but not so much as to make you sluggish. Then begins the ritual of arming. This is not like the clumsy fumbling with heavy wooden training gear. This is different. Your real armor, the equipment you will wear into the arena, is brought out. It has been polished to a brilliant shine. The bronze of your THRAX helmet glints in the torchlight, the griffin crest looking proud and menacing. This is no longer just protective gear, it is a costume. An attendant, a specialist known as the armor custos, helps you. He is meticulous. Every strap must be perfectly tightened, every piece of armor correctly seated. He helps you into your padded manica on your sword arm. He fastens the greaves to your shins, the metal cold against your skin. The small, square Parmula shield is strapped to your arm. Finally, the heavy helmet is placed over your head. The world shrinks once again to that narrow slit, the sound of your own breathing loud in the sudden confinement. You are handed your weapon. It is the first time you have held a real, sharpened sika. It feels lighter than the wooden reigning sword, but it possesses a deadly new energy. The edge is keen, the point sharp. It is cold, balanced, and terrifyingly real. All those months of striking a wooden post were for this moment, for this piece of steel. Once all the chosen fighters are armed, you are assembled in the courtyard. The law on his take gives a final inspection, his eyes checking every detail. He might offer a few terse words of encouragement, but they are not meant to be comforting. They are a businessman's instructions to his employees: fight well, obey the referee, remember your training, bring honor to this school. Then you march, leaving the ludus. You are loaded into guarded wagons or marched in a tight column through the city streets. The mood is tense and silent. You are no longer individuals, but a single unit, a troupe of performers on your way to the theater. You arrive at the amphitheater. The sheer scale of the building is overwhelming. It's a mountain of stone and arches, far larger than you could have imagined. You are led not through the main public entrances, but through a separate, ominous-looking gate, often called the Porta Libidinensis, named after the goddess of funerals. This is the gate through which the dead and wounded will later be carried out. You are herded down a dark, sloping ramp into the belly of the beast. The air below the arena is cool and damp, a labyrinth of dark tunnels and holding cells. The distant, muffled roar of the crowd above is a constant, vibrating hum, like a giant, sleeping animal. This is where you wait. You are placed in a small, bare cell with the other gladiators. The minutes stretch into an eternity. You might run through some last-minute stretches, or simply sit on a stone bench, trying to control your breathing, trying to quiet the frantic beating of your heart. Then, a horn blast echoes through the tunnels. It's time. The guards open the cell doors. It is the beginning of the Pompa, the grand opening procession. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of the games. It's not just the gladiators who participate. The Pompa is a full-blown parade designed to whip the crowd into a frenzy. You are lined up in the tunnel, which slopes upwards towards a sliver of brilliant, blinding light. The parade is led by lictors, the ceremonial bodyguards of the sponsoring magistrate. Then comes the editor himself, dressed in magnificent robes, waving to the crowd. He is followed by musicians playing trumpets, horns, and water organs. The music a chaotic, thrilling blast of sound. There might be priests and attendants carrying statues of the gods. And then come you, the main attraction. You march in a group, arranged by your ludus. You are not yet in your full combat armor. You might be wearing a colorful tunic, or cloak over your loincloth. You carry your weapons, but your helmets are likely off, so the crowd can see your faces. This is your introduction to the audience. As you step out of the darkness of the tunnel and onto the sand of the arena, the world explodes. The sheer wall of sound hits you like a physical blow. Tens of thousands of people, a sea of faces rising up to the sky, are roaring, cheering, screaming. The sunlight is blinding after the gloom of the tunnels. The sheer size of the crowd, the immensity of the space, is designed to intimidate and awe. You march around the perimeter of the arena, a slow, formal lap. You are expected to look confident, strong, fearless. You hold your head high, your gaze forward, even though your insides are churning with terror. The parade circles the arena and comes to a halt before the editor's lavishly decorated private box. Here, you all raise your weapons in a salute. The famous phrase, Daude, Caesar, Mortarier T salute and hail. Caesar, those who are about to die salute you, is often associated with this moment. However, historians believe this was not a standard gladiator salute at all. It is recorded only once, by the historian Suetonius, describing a specific, massive mock naval battle on a lake staged by the Emperor Claudius, fought by condemned criminals, not professional gladiators. Whether regular gladiators used a similar, less dramatic salute is a matter of academic debate. More likely, it was a simple, respectful acknowledgement of the man paying for the show. After the salute, the Pompa concludes. You are led back into the tunnels to await your specific match. The preliminary events are about to begin: wild animal hunts, venations, or public executions. Your fight is yet to come, but you have made your entrance. The crowd has seen you. The stage is set. You are back in the dim, cool air of the tunnels beneath the arena floor. The roar of the crowd is a constant, oppressive weight of physical pressure on your chest. It's a sound that you can feel in your bones. Through the grates, you can hear the sounds of the morning's entertainment, the snarls of exotic beasts during the venations, the occasional scream, the thunderous applause of the audience. For you, this is just a waiting game. The long, agonizing prelude to your own moment of truth. You sit on a cold stone bench. Some men pace restlessly. Others stare at the wall, their minds 1,000 miles away. An attendant comes by with a water skin, and you take a small sip, the cool liquid doing little to quench the dryness in your throat. You check the straps on your greaves for the 10th time. You run a thumb cautiously along the unsharpened edge of your Sika's blade. The familiar weight of the helmet in your lap is the only comforting thing in this chaotic sensory overload. Then, you hear your name, or the stage name you've been given, bellowed by a herald. A guard bangs his staff on your cell door. It's time. Your heart hammers against your ribs. Every instinct screams at you to stay in the relative safety of the dark tunnel. But you rise. You place the heavy helmet over your head, and the world once again becomes a narrow, muffled sight. Your breathing sounds like a storm in your ears. You walk towards the light, your opponent walking a few paces ahead or behind you. He is just a silhouette against the blinding brightness of the arena. As you step onto the sand, the sound hits you with its full force. It's not just a roar anymore, it's a physical entity. A wave of noise that washes over you, through you. It's the collective voice of 50,000 people, all focused on you. The sand is soft and deep under your feet. It's been freshly raked, and the afternoon sun has baked it warm. The sheer scale of the amphitheater from this vantage point is dizzying. The stands seem to rise up to the heavens, a dizzying wall of humanity. You can't make out individual faces, only a blur of color and movement. You see flashes of white from the two gas of the senators in the lower tiers, the vibrant colors of the women's dresses, the drab browns and grays of the common folk packed into the highest seats. They are all watching you. In the center of the arena stand the two referees, the Summa Rudess, clad in white, their staffs held ready. They give you and your opponent a final look, ensuring your equipment is in order. You walk to your starting position, the sand crunching under your feet. You plant your feet, settling into the familiar starting stance your doctor drilled into you 1,000 times. You can feel the sun beating down on the bronze of your helmet, the metal already starting to heat up. Across the sand, your opponent does the same. He is no longer your fellow trainee, no longer the man you shared a strange, silent meal with last night. He is an obstacle. He is a problem to be solved. Through the narrow slits of your helmet, you try to read his posture. Is he nervous? Is he confident? You look for any tiny clue, any hint of his intention. A trumpet blast, sharp and clear, cuts through the din. The roar of the crowd swells in anticipation. This is it. The referees step back. There are no more instructions, no more trading, no more waiting. There is only the sand, the sun, your opponent, and the deafening noise. This initial moment on the sand is a crucible that forges or breaks a gladiator. All the training, all the mental preparation can evaporate in the face of this overwhelming sensory assault. This is where the men are separated from the boys. Can you control your fear? Can you channel the adrenaline into focus rather than panic? Many a hero has been known to freeze in his first fight, completely overwhelmed by the spectacle, becoming an easy target for his more composed opponent. This phenomenon, the psychological impact of the crowd, is something historians and psychologists still analyze. The pressure to perform, the roar of approval for a successful hit, the collective groan of disappointment for a clumsy move. It's a powerful force that can manipulate a fighter's actions. Some gladiators were known to be crowd pleasers. deliberately taking risks or using flamboyant moves to win the audience's favor, knowing that their goodwill could be the deciding factor in a plea for mercy. A strange, little-known detail of the arena was its smell. It wasn't just the odor of sweat and blood. The Romans often tried to mask the unpleasant smells with perfumes. Scented water was sometimes sprinkled into the crowd from elaborate systems, and fragrant spices were burned. So as you stand there, heart pounding, you might catch a faint, incongruous scent of saffron or cinnamon mixed with the metallic tang of fear and the dust of the sand. You take a deep breath, the air hot and close inside your helmet. You grip your Sika tighter, its leather hilt slick with your sweat. You raise your small shield, angling it just as you were taught. The world narrows to the figure of your opponent. The crowd, the sun, the noise, it all has to fade away. Your survival depends on your ability to shrink this colossal world down to the few feet of sand that separates you from the man who is trying to defeat you. The trumpet has sounded. The fight has begun. The moment after the trumpet blast is one of pure, suspended tension. The roar of the crowd becomes a background hum in your ears as your training takes over. You don't charge forward in a blind rage. That's what a fool would do, and it would get you killed. Your first moves are cautious. The slow, deliberate circling of your opponent. You are a TH, bar a X, and so is he. It's a mirror match. You know his strengths and weaknesses because they are also your own. You hold your small parmulus shield high, protecting your upper body, while your knees are bent in a low crouch to guard your exposed thighs. Your curved Sika is held back, ready to strike. It's a deadly dance, a chess match on sand. You feint, a quick jab with the sword, to see how he reacts. Does he flinch? Does he overcome to a block? Leaving himself open, he parries your feint easily with his own shield, then answers with a quick step and a slash of his own. You catch the blow on your shield, the clang of metal on metal ringing loud even through your helmet. This is the reality of a professional gladiatorial contest, a truth often lost in the whirlwind of cinematic battles. It was not a mindless, bloody slugfest. It was a technical martial art, a display of skill, strategy, and endurance. The crowd, especially the connoisseurs in the good seats, understood this. They weren't just there for the kill, they were there to appreciate the finer points of the fight. They would cheer for a clever parry, a well-timed dodge, or cunning strategy. You continue to circle, probing for an opening. The heat inside your helmet is intense. Sweat stings your eyes. Your arm is already beginning to feel the strain of holding the shield. You know you can't let this drag on forever. Endurance is key. Your high carb, barley mandiat was designed for this, to give you the slow burn energy needed for a long match. Your opponent is patient, disciplined. You realize that a direct assault is unlikely to work. You need to use the unique properties of your weapon. The Sika isn't designed for head-on attacks against a shield, it's designed to get around it. You make another feint, this time lower, towards his legs. As he instinctively lowers his shield to block, you change the angle of your attack mid-swing, bringing the curved blade up and over the top of his shield in a sweeping arc. It's a move you practiced hundreds of times against the palace. The tip of your sword catches his shoulder, just above the arm guard. It's not a deep cut, but it's a cut nonetheless. Blood, shockingly bright against his skin, wells up from the wound. The crowd roars its approval. This is what they came to see. A palpable hit. Habit. He's had it. They might scream. The sight of blood, even his, sends a jolt of adrenaline through you. But your opponent is a professional. He grunts, steps back, but his guard doesn't waver. The wound will bleed. It will look dramatic, but it's not debilitating. The fight continues. Now he is on the offensive, pressing his attack, trying to overwhelm you before the wound saps his strength. He forces you back with a flurry of strikes, the blows hammering against your shield. You give ground, your feet shuffling in the sand, absorbing the impacts, waiting for your moment. One of the more peculiar, and still debated, aspects of the fights was the musical accompaniment. The musicians who played during the pompa didn't necessarily pack up and go home. Often, a water organ, horns, or trumpets would play during the combat, providing a dramatic soundtrack to the action. The music would swell with an attack, become tense during a stalemate, and blast a triumphant note for a successful hit. This turned the fight into a complete theatrical production. For you, the fighter, this music is another layer of distraction, another element you must tune out to focus on your survival. You manage to sidestep a heavy blow, and your opponent stumbles slightly, his foot slipping in the loose sand. In that instant, you see your chance. You don't aim for his body, you aim for his weapon. With a quick, sharp flick of your sika, you hook his sword hand. He cries out as your blade slices across his knuckles. He drops his sword. It falls to the sand with a soft thud. He is disarmed. The crowd goes wild. The referee, the sumo rudis, immediately steps forward, holding his staff between you. The action is paused. Your opponent, clutching his bleeding hand, looks down at his fallen sword, then up at you. His fight is over. He has been clearly undecisively beaten. He could, in theory, be allowed to retrieve his weapon, but the blow to his hand is too severe. He knows it. You know it. He drops to one knee and raises a single finger on his uninjured hand. The adage gatom, the gesture of surrender. He has fought bravely, but he has been defeated. Now, his fate is no longer in his own hands. Then neither, in a way, is yours. Your job was to defeat him. What happens next is up to the powers that be. You stand victorious, your chest heaving, the adrenaline slowly starting to recede. Replaced by profound exhaustion, your opponent is on one knee in the sand, his head bowed, his single finger raised in the universal sign of surrender. The referee has separated you, and a tense quiet falls over the part of the crowd that understands the gravity of the moment. The fight is over, but the drama is not. Now comes the most famous and most misunderstood part of the entire spectacle, the verdict. Your opponent's life now hangs in the balance, and his fate will be decided by the sponsor of the games, the editor. But the editor is a politician, a showman. He will not make this decision in a vacuum. He will be heavily influenced by the will of the crowd. You, the victor, simply stand and wait. This part is not up to you. The crowd begins to voice its opinion. It's a chaotic roar, a cacophony of thousands of voices shouting their desires. Some will be screaming mit, let him go. They are calling for mercy, or missioal. Perhaps they felt your opponent fought bravely and deserves to live to fight another day. Maybe they have money riding on him surviving the match. Others will be screaming Ayu Gula, slay him. They are calling for death. Perhaps they found his performance cowardly, or perhaps they are simply in a bloodthirsty mood. The noise is a confusing, overwhelming poll of public opinion. The editor, from his lavish box, watches the crowd, gauging its mood. He listens to the chants. He might confer with his advisors. This is a moment of pure political theater. Granting mercy could show him to be a compassionate and merciful leader. Demanding death could show him to be strong and decisive. Giving the crowd the bloody finale it craves. His decision will be based on a complex calculation of public relations, the cost of the gladiator's life as per the contract with your honeste, and his own personal whim. And then comes the gesture. This is the source of one of the most enduring myths about ancient Rome. The popular image, immortalized in countless paintings and movies, is thumbs up for life and thumbs down for death. This is almost certainly wrong. The historical evidence is murky, but most scholars now believe the thumbs down gesture is a modern invention. The actual gesture for death was likely the pollice verso, which translates to with a turned thumb. What does turned mean? This is where the academic debate rages. Some historians argue that the thumb was pressed against the closed fist pollice compresso to signify sheathing a sword, thus granting life. The death signal. They argue was the thumb stuck out, either upwards or to the side, a gesture meant to imitate the drawing of a sword. So ironically, thumbs up might have been the signal for death. Another theory suggests that any motion of the thumb, a wiggling or turning, was the kill signal, while a closed fist with the thumb hidden was the sign for mercy. There is no definitive consensus, only tantalizing clues from ancient texts and art. The one thing most agree on is that the simple up-down gesture we know today is not historically accurate. The editor has made his decision. He stands, the crowd quiets, anticipating the verdict. He makes the gesture. Let's say, for you and your opponent, it is the sign for mercy. He has decided your opponent fought well enough to be spared. A wave of relief, so profound it almost buckles your knees, washes over you. You did not have to become an executioner today. Your opponent lumps, a puppet with its strings cut. Attendants rush into the arena to help him to his feet and lead him away towards the portus, an Aviv Aria, the gate of life, through which the surviving gladiators exited. He will be taken to the infirmary and receive the best possible medical care. He lost the match, but he kept his life. You, the victor, are now the center of attention. The referee raises your arm. The crowd cheers. A different kind of cheer, now not the bloodthirsty roar, but the appreciative applause for a winner, a hero. An attendant brings you the prize for your victory, a palm branch, a symbol of triumph, and sometimes a sum of money. It's not a fortune, but it's yours. You take a victory lap around the arena. This is your moment. You hold the palm branch high. You are exhausted, wounded, and emotionally drained, but you are also euphoric. For the first time, the roar of the crowd feels good. It is a wave of adoration. You have survived. More than that, you have won. You have proven your worth. You have taken your first step up the long ladder of the gladiatorial world. As you walk towards the gate of life, you catch the eye of your laniste. He gives you a cart. Satisfied nod. His investment has paid off. You have won him prestige and profit. Your status in the ludus has just been irrevocably changed. You are no longer just a hero. You are a victor. You have earned your first taste of glory. You limp off the sand, your victory lap complete, and are guided back into the cool, dark tunnels beneath the stands. The moment you are out of the public eye, the euphoric adrenaline of your win gives way to a crushing wave of exhaustion and pain. The cut on your shoulder, which you barely felt during the fight, now throbs with a fiery intensity. The bruises from your opponent's blows are beginning to blossom on your skin. You are not taken back to the grim holding cells, but to a different area of the amphitheater's substructure, the infirmary. It's a dedicated space, well lit by torches, smelling strongly of wine, vinegar, and medicinal herbs. This is the domain of the doctors, the same kind of skilled medici who first assessed you at the ludus. Their job now is to patch you up. You are helped onto a wooden table, and an attendant carefully unstraps your armor. Removing the heavy, sweat-soaked helmet is a profound relief. The cool air on your face feels wonderful. A doctor, his face calm and professional, immediately begins to examine your wounds. He cleans the gash on your shoulder with a cloth soaked in wine or vinegar, both of which have antiseptic properties. The sting is sharp, and you clench your jaw but do not cry out. A sign of weakness now would tarnish your victory. The medical care you receive is, paradoxically, some of the best in the Roman world, because the laniste and the editor have a vested interest in your survival and future fighting career. No expenses spared. The doctors who worked the games were masters of trauma care. They had seen every kind of wound imaginable and were experts at stitching, setting bones, and preventing infection. As mentioned before, the famous physician Galen built his reputation on the knowledge he gained from treating gladiators. He learned how to tie off arteries, how to treat severed tendons, and how to distinguish between different types of injuries in a way that few other doctors could. The doctor stitches your wound with a bronze needle and fine linen thread, his movements quick and precise. The wound is then dressed with a clean bandage, perhaps soaked in a herbal poultice. Your bruises are rubbed with a soothing, oily balm. Every scrape and strain is attended to. While this is happening, you see other gladiators being treated around you. Your defeated opponent is there, his hand being carefully bandaged. There are others with far more serious injuries. The infirmary is a busy, methodical, and surprisingly quiet place. The screams and roars of the arena are rolled away. Once your wounds are treated, you are given time to rest. The physical toll of the fight is immense, but the psychological aftermath is just as significant. You have faced death and emerged victorious. You have inflicted violence on another human being. It's a heavy burden to process, but as you recover, you begin to notice a change in how you are treated. The guards are a little more respectful. The attendants speak to you with a new deference. Your victory has elevated your status, and the physical evidence of your trial, the stitches, the bruises, and eventually, the scar will become a permanent part of your new identity. Scars were not something to be hidden or ashamed of in the world of a gladiator. They were a resume, a physical testament to your experience and your survival. They were your badges of honor. A gladiator with a chest and arms covered in scars was a man who had been tested in the crucible of the arena and had survived. It told everyone, other gladiators, the lawn iste, the fans, that you were not a novice. You were a veteran. This attitude towards scarring is a fascinating cultural detail. In polite Roman society, facial scars might be seen as disfiguring, but for a gladiator, they were a mark of professional pride. Some scholars have even suggested, though it's a point of debate, that certain types of good scars, those that looked heroic and were on the front of the body, proving you didn't turn your back and run, were seen as attractive by some admirers. The poet Ovid even jokes about a gladiator's scars being appealing to women. A little-known aspect of post-fight care involved magical and religious beliefs. Alongside the sophisticated medical treatment, there might be other, less scientific, remedies. An amulet might be placed around your neck to ward off infection or evil spirits. A small offering might be made at a nearby shrine to Hercules or Nemesis, the goddess of fortune and vengeance, whose chapels were often located near amphitheaters. Medicine and magic were not mutually exclusive in the Roman mind. You took every precaution you could get. After a few hours of rest and treatment, you are deemed fit to be moved. You are taken back to the ludus, not with the grim silence of the morning's march, but with a new sense of accomplishment. When you walk back into the training yard, the other gladiators, those who didn't fight, look at you differently. The veterans might give you a nod of acknowledgement. You have passed the initiation. You have joined their ranks. That night, you lie in your cell, your shoulder throbbing, your body aching, but your mind is clear. You replay the fight. Every move, every decision. You think about your opponent, and you feel a sense of professional respect, not hatred. And you look at the fresh stitches in your skin. That line of thread will eventually be replaced by a pale, silvery scar. It is the first entry in your physical biography, the first story written on your skin. It is proof that you are a survivor. In the days and weeks following your first victory, you notice a profound shift in your daily life. You are no longer at the bottom of the ludus food chain. You have graduated from the anonymous ranks of the TIR1s. You are now a veteranus, a title earned with blood and sweat. This new status comes with tangible perks. You might be moved to a slightly larger cell, perhaps one you don't have to share. The barley mush you're served might have a few more beans in it. The trainers no longer scream at you with the same dismissive contempt. Their corrections are now those of a coach to a valued player, not a drill sergeant to a maggot. But the biggest change is not inside the walls of the ludus, but outside. You have become, in a small way, famous. You are now a slave celebrity. One of the most bizarre paradoxes of Roman society. Gladiators existed in a state of infamy, a legal and social disgrace. They were owned. They were outcasts. They had no civic rights, and yet, the most successful among them were worshipped like modern rock stars or champion athletes. Your first inkling of this comes from the guards. One might mention, with a sly grin, that he saw your name scrawled on a tavern wall. A piece of graffiti your stage name Victor, perhaps with a crude drawing of a palm branch. Archaeologists in Pompeii and other Roman cities have found countless examples of this. Graffiti praising specific gladiators, listing their number of victories, was a common sight. It was the ancient world's version of a fan page. Then, you start to hear about yourself from the outside world through the few channels available to you. You learn that your victory is being talked about in the city's bars and bathhouses. People are debating your technique, your bravery. Your name is known. You have a public identity. This celebrity status could manifest in strange ways. Successful gladiators were the superstars of their day. Their images might be used to decorate everyday objects like pottery lamps, bows, or mosaics. A wealthy citizen might commission a mosaic floor for his villa depicting a famous gladiator's victorious fight. Your fight. You, a slave, could be immortalized in the home of a free, powerful man. The adulation from fans, especially female admirers, was legendary. The Roman satirist Juvenal wrote scathingly about aristocratic ladies who became infatuated with gladiators, swooning over their muscles and heroic scars. He tells the story of a senator's wife, Thapia, who supposedly ran off to Egypt with her favorite gladiator, abandoning her family and wealth for a scarred, wealth-hewn fighter. While this is likely an exaggeration designed to criticize the moral decay of the elite, it points to a well-known phenomenon. Gladiators were objects of intense fascination and desire. You, as a rising star, might start to receive fan mail or gifts passed through the guards. These could be small tokens of admiration, food, or even money. This is a point of historical debate. How much personal property could a gladiator, especially one who was a slave, actually own? The evidence suggests they could accumulate a personal fund, a PEC, the prize money from victories, gifts from admirers. This was theirs cheap. It could be used to buy small luxuries within the ludus, to gamble with, or, most importantly, to save towards the ultimate goal, freedom. A particularly weird and little-known aspect of this celebrity culture was the trade in gladiator-related memorabilia. The strangest of these was the collection and sale of strigils. A strigil was a curved metal tool used by athletes to scrape oil, sweat, and dirt off their bodies after exercise or a bath. The grime scraped from a famous gladiator, sweat and all, was considered a potent substance. It was collected by attendants unsold in tiny vials to female fans. They would mix this gladiator sweat into their facial creams and cosmetics, believing it was a powerful aphrodisiac that would make them irresistible. It's a bizarre, intimate, and slightly gross detail that shows the sheer intensity of the fan culture surrounding you. Your l'honnêteté is, of course, keenly aware of your rising fame and encourages it. Your popularity increases your value. The more fans you have, the higher the rental fee he can command for your next fight. He might grant you small privileges, like better equipment or more time in the bathish, to keep his star asset happy and healthy. Living this life is a constant mental tightrope walk. On the one hand, you are a slave, a prisoner whose life is not your own. You live under a brutal regime and face the constant threat of a violent death. On the other hand, you walk through the training yard and know that outside these walls, people are chanting your name. You are admired, desired, and famous. You are both a disposable object and a celebrated hero. This duality is the core of your existence. You must learn to live with the shame of your legal status and the glory of your public persona. It's a heavy burden, but it's also a powerful motivator. The roar of the crowd, even the memory of it, is a potent drug, and you want more of it. Your fame continues to grow with each successful fight. You are no longer just a name graffiti ad on a wall, you are becoming a brand. The honest, ever the shady businessman, knows how to market his assets. The public's fascination with you and other top gladiators leads to a bizarre and flourishing market for merchandise and memorabilia that goes far beyond collecting your sweat. You might first become aware of this when a guard shows you a small, crudely made clay lamp he bought in the market. It's a common, everyday object, but molded into its surface is a tiny, stylized figure of a THRAX gladiator, holding a curved sword and a small shield. Underneath it, your stage name is scratched into the clay. Seeing your name on a mass-produced object is a surreal experience. You are a product, a popular character whose likeness can be used to sell household goods. This was incredibly common. Archaeologists have found a treasure trove of objects featuring gladiatorial combat. Glassware was a particularly popular medium. Beautifully crafted glass cups, known as gladiator cups, have been found across the Roman Empire, from Britain to the Black Sea. These cups were decorated with scenes of famous fights, often naming the gladiators involved. Imagine, a family in a distant province could be drinking their wine from a cup that celebrates your victory in the arena. The range of these souvenirs was vast. Figurines of popular gladiators, made from clay or more expensive bronze, were sold like ancient action figures. Children would play with them, staging their own miniature games. Mosaics, as you've learned, were the high-end version, a permanent and costly tribute to a favorite fighter, commissioned by the wealthy. But the fan culture could also take a more personal, and sometimes stranger, turn as a bona fide star of the arena. You might start to receive unusual gifts from wealthy admirers. These wouldn't be simple tokens of cash, but extravagant, and sometimes inappropriate, presents delivered to the ludus. A case of expensive imported wine, a lavish platter of food that you would have to share with the honest and the other top fighters, or even fine clothes that you would have no occasion to wear. These gifts were not always altruistic. They were often an attempt by a wealthy patron to associate themselves with your fame and perceived vitality. By becoming your patron, they gained a certain social cachet. It was a way for them to show off their connection to the raw, thrilling world of the arena, all from a safe distance. Then there were the letters. You, who may have been illiterate when you first arrived, might now have to ask a literate guard or fellow gladiator to read them to you. They would be filled with breathless praise, declarations of admiration, and sometimes more intimate proposals from female fans. This is the part that Roman moralists like Juvenal loved to criticize, but it was a well-known reality of the life. For some Roman women, constrained by strict social rules, the gladiator represented a dangerous, untamed masculinity that was deeply alluring. One of the weirdest and most debated forms of fan tribute involved the blood of a slain gladiator. While you are, so far, a survivor, you see what happens when a less fortunate fighter falls in the arena and is not granted mercy. After the body is removed, some people in the crowd, particularly those suffering from epilepsy, would rush to the spot. There was a deeply ingrained folk belief, mentioned by writers like Pliny the Elder, that the fresh, warm blood of a healthy, slain gladiator could cure seizures if consumed. It's a gruesome, almost vampiric piece of folk medicine that highlights the magical properties attributed to you and your brethren. Your very life force was considered a potent cure. This brings up a fascinating point that historians still ponder: to what extent did the gladiators themselves believe in this word? You're aware that people thought your sweat was an aphrodisiac and your blood was a cure for epilepsy, and if so, what did you think about it? Did it feed your ego? Did it disgust you? Or was it just another bizarre, incomprehensible part of the Roman world you had been forced into? The historical record, written almost exclusively by the elite, is silent on the gladiators' own perspectives. Navigating this world of strange fandom is a new and complex challenge. You must remain a disciplined, focused warrior inside the ludus, While your public persona takes on a life of its own, your image is being molded, sold, and consumed by a public that knows nothing of your reality, the monotonous training, the constant fear, the bland barley diet. They see the hero, the victor, the symbol of strength. They don't see the slave, the prisoner, the man who lies awake at night in a stone cell, wondering if the next fight will be his last. You are living a dual existence, and the gap between the celebrated image and the grim reality is a chasm you must learn to ignore every single day. Years pass. You are no longer the rising star, you are an established champion, a primus palace of your ludus. Your name is known throughout the province, and maybe even beyond. You have survived a dozen fights, maybe more. Your body is a road map of scars, each one a memory of a victory, a close call, a moment of terror overcome. The new recruits, the T-IR ones, look at you with the same mixture of awe and fear that you once had for the veterans. Your daily routine has changed. While you still train relentlessly to keep your edge, a significant part of your day is now spent as an instructor. You have become a doctor, perhaps not the head trainer of the school, but a specialist in your own fighting style, a Dr. T.H. Ray Cum. It is now your job to scream at the novices, to correct their clumsy footwork, to force them to hold the heavy training shield until their arms tremble. This new role is filled with a grim irony. You see the fear and confusion in the eyes of the young men you are training, and you see your former self. You know exactly what they are feeling. You are their guide through the hell you survived. You are stern, demanding, and merciless in your instruction, because you know that a lapse in training, a moment of weakness you fail to correct, could get them killed in the arena. Your cruelty is a form of kindness. Life as a veteran gladiator is a paradox of privilege and pain. You get the best of everything the ludus has to offer: better food, the private cell, the respect of your peers, and a larger share of any prize money. The honest day treats you less like a slave and more like a trusted business partner. Your continued success brings him great wealth and prestige. However, the physical toll of your career is catching up with you. You wake up each morning with a symphony of aches. An old wound in your knee throbs when the air is damp. Your shoulder, where you took that first cut years ago, has never been quite the same. You carry the ghosts of every fight with you, not just in your mind, but in your very bones and sinews. The physicians at the ludus are your constant companions, managing your chronic pains with massages, balms, and herbal remedies. Your fighting style has evolved. You are no longer the fast, aggressive youth you once were. You are smarter, more cunning. You rely less on raw speed and more on experience and strategy. You know how to conserve your energy, how to read an opponent's intentions from the subtlest shift in his weight. You know how to use the crowd, to play for a dramatic pause that gives you a precious second to catch your breath. You win your fights now with your mind as much as with your body. One of the great debates among historians is about the average career length of a gladiator. How many fights could a man realistically survive? The data is sparse and often contradictory. Some epitaphs record gladiators who fought dozens, even over 100 times, but these were almost certainly legendary outliers. For most, a career of 8 to 10 fights would have been considered long and successful. To have survived for years, as you have, makes you a living legend, a statistical anomaly. A little-known aspect of a veteran's life was the potential for specialization beyond just fighting. An experienced and trusted gladiator might be used as a bodyguard for the honest day or a wealthy patron. Some might even act as enforcers. And, as you are doing, the most intelligent and respected could become trainers, a position that offered a degree of safety and influence within the ludus. You are now part of the establishment of the school. You help the Lanus to assess the new recruits. You watch the sparring matches and offer your expert opinion on who is ready for the arena. You are a gatekeeper. Your judgment can determine the fate of the younger men who are following in your footsteps. It's a heavy responsibility. Sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, you might sit with the other veterans, the other survivors. You don't talk much about the past. You don't need to. The shared understanding is there in the scars you all bear. You might share a drink of cheap wine, play a game of dice, and enjoy a moment of peace in a life defined by violence. You are a brotherhood forged in the most extreme circumstances. A small, exclusive club of men who have stared into the abyss and have, so far, managed not to fall in. But you know this cannot last forever. Your reflexes are a fraction of a second slower than they were last year. They knew. Younger, faster THRAX has just won his first fight, and you see the fire in his eyes. The clock is always ticking. Every fight you survive is a miracle, but it also brings you one fight closer to the one you might not. The question that begins to dominate your thoughts is no longer will I win, but how does this end? Your reputation as a reliable, crowd-pleasing champion has spread far beyond your home city. One day, the Laniste calls you to his office. He has received a lucrative offer, one he can't refuse. A provincial governor, or perhaps even a close associate of the emperor himself, is staging magnificent games in a major capital hundreds of miles away, perhaps even in Rome. They don't just want local fighters, they want the best of the best from across the empire. They want you. For the first time in years, you are leaving the familiar walls of your ludus. But this is not a march to the local amphitheater. This is a tour. You, along with a handful of other elite gladiators from your school, are part of a traveling troupe. Your Laniste is taking his show on the road. The journey itself is a strange new experience. You travel under heavy guard, sometimes in wagons, sometimes marching. You see the empire not as a captive being dragged to your doom, but as a valued professional on your way to a high-profile engagement. You pass through towns and cities you've only ever heard of, seeing the vastness of Roman power and infrastructure. The journey is long and arduous, but it's a break from the relentless routine of the training yard. Upon arriving at the new city, you are housed in the local ludus or in a specially secured section of the barracks. Here, you are the outsider, the visiting star. The local gladiators look at you with a mixture of professional curiosity and resentment. You are here to take the spotlight, to command the highest fees, and to defeat their local champions. The inter-school rivalry is palpable. The scale of everything is grander. The amphitheater is larger. The crowds are bigger, and the stakes are higher. These are not the simple provincial games you are used to. These are Loon, special events sponsored by the highest levels of power. The pressure to perform is immense. You are not just representing your ludus anymore, you are representing your entire region. You might be scheduled to fight a local hero, a man with his own legion of fiercely loyal fans. When you step into the arena for the Pampa, the cheers for him are deafening. While you might be met with a chorus of boos and jeers, you are the villain in their story, the foreign challenger who has come to topple their champion. You must use this. Channel their hostility into your focus. The fight itself is against an opponent of a caliber you have rarely faced. He is as skilled, as experienced, and as famous as you are. It is a true clash of titans. The fight is longer, more technical, and more grueling than any you have fought before. Every trick, every ounce of cunning you have accumulated over the years is put to the test. This practice of having gladiators tour the empire was an essential part of the business. It kept the matchups fresh and exciting for the public. A constant diet of local fighters becomes stale. Bringing in stars from other regions created dream matchups, the ancient equivalent of a world championship bout. Inscriptions found far from a gladiator's place of origin confirm this mobility. A gladiator from Gaul might have a tombstone in Ephesus. A Thracian might be celebrated in a mosaic in Britain. They were a surprisingly mobile workforce. One of the lesser-known aspects of these grander games was the use of elaborate stage machinery. The Colosseum in Rome, for example, had a complex system of elevators and trapdoors in its substructure. The high podium. This allowed for stunning theatrical effects. Wild animals, scenery, or even other fighters could be hoisted up and appear as if from nowhere, in the middle of the arena. Fighting in such a venue meant you had to be aware not just of your opponent, but of the environment itself. The very ground beneath your feet could change without warning. Historians are still piecing together the full complexity of the Colosseum's machinery. Was it used during gladiatorial combat to raise or lower fighters? Or was it primarily for the animal hunts and theatrical reenactments? The exact mechanics in their use during specific events remain a topic of scholarly investigation, but the potential for surprise was undeniable. Let's say you are victorious. You defeat the local champion in a hard-fought battle. You silence the hostile crowd with your skill and resilience, perhaps even winning their respect by granting your defeated opponent a show of mercy. Your fame explodes. You are no longer just a provincial star, you are an imperial superstar. Your Launiste is ecstatic. Your victory has brought him unimaginable prestige and a staggering amount of money. Offers for your appearance pour in. You might spend months, even years, on the road, moving from one major city to another, a touring celebrity in a world that both despises and adores you. This life on the road is isolating. You are far from the familiar hierarchy and routines of your home ludus. You live in a succession of temporary barracks, facing a succession of new opponents, in front of a succession of new crowds. The only constant is the violence, the fear, and the fleeting glory of victory. You are at the absolute pinnacle of your strange profession, but you are also more aware than ever that you are a commodity, a valuable piece of property being shipped around the empire for profit. The bigger your name gets, the less your life feels like your own. You have seen the great cities of the empire. You have defeated champions, silenced hostile crowds, and earned more money for your Launiste than he ever dreamed of. Your body aches constantly, a testament to a long and brutal career. You are a living legend, but you are also tired. The fire that once drove you to seek glory has been replaced by a deep, bone-weary desire for one thing and end to it. For a gladiator, there were only a few ways out. The most common, of course, was death in the arena. Another was to become so maimed that you were no longer fit to fight, at which point you might be pensioned off to a menial job within the ludus. But there was a third path, the rarest and most coveted of all freedom. This is your new and final goal. The right to retire, known as missioi, could be granted for an extraordinary career of service and survival. It was not a right, but a gift, bestowed by your Launiste or sometimes by a grateful editor or emperor after a particularly spectacular performance, and it was symbolized by a single, humble object, the rudis, a simple wooden sword, identical to the one you first swung as a clumsy tiro. Receiving the rudis was the dream of every gladiator. It was a formal declaration that your service was complete. It was a certificate of manumission, the legal act of freeing a slave. The moment that wooden sword was placed in your hand, you were no longer a gladiator. You were a free man. But it was not easily earned. Ael Honeste would be very reluctant to free his top earner. Why would a businessman willingly give up his most valuable asset? Freeing you meant he could no longer profit from your fights. Therefore, freedom often had to be bought. Over the years, you have been saving your P. You'll see Ulium, the prize money from your victories, the gifts from your admirers. You have lived a Spartan life, resisting the temptations to squander it on fleeting pleasures. You have accumulated a small fortune. Now, you make your Launiste an offer. You propose to buy your own freedom. The price is exorbitant, a sum that represents not just your initial purchase price, but all the money he could have made from your future fights. It is a tense negotiation. He is a businessman, you are his star product. But he is also a realist. He sees the wear and tear on your body. He knows you cannot go on forever. Eventually, after much haggling, the deal is struck. The ceremony is a quiet one, held in the training yard of the ludus. The other gladiators, from the newest hero to the oldest veteran, gather to watch. The Laniste makes a short speech, praising your long and honorable career. Then, he presents you with the rudies. You take it in your hand. It feels impossibly light. This simple piece of wood weighs more than all the gold and glory you have won. It is the weight of a future. The feeling is indescribable. It's a quiet, overwhelming relief that washes away years of fear and tension. You have done it. You have survived. You have won the final prize. This path to freedom is a subject of much historical discussion. How common was it? Really, the romantic image of the hero winning his freedom is powerful. But was it a regular occurrence or a one-in-a-million fantasy? The evidence is mixed. We have epitaphs and literary accounts of gladiators who did receive the rudies and lived to a ripe old age. The gladiator-turned-trainer is a common trope, and many of these doctoress were rudiary freedmen who chose to stay in the only world they knew. A fascinating and little-known fact is what the rudies legally represented. Once freed, you were a libertas. A freedman, you were no longer infamous. You could vote in a limited capacity, own property, and conduct business. However, you were not quite the equal of a freeborn Roman citizen. You would always carry the stigma of your past. You were still bound by a certain obligation of loyalty, then obius decoyam, to your former master, the Laniste, who was now your patron. That you were free. You could walk out of the gates of the ludus and not come back. Some gladiators, upon receiving the rudies, made a surprising choice. They signed on for one more fight. Why would a freeman risk his life? The answer was money. High-famous rudiarius could command an astronomical fee for a final farewell performance. It was a way to set themselves up for a comfortable retirement. The risk was insane, but the potential reward was a life of wealth and security they could otherwise only dream of. You, however, have had enough. You have no desire to step on the sand again. You hold the wooden sword, the symbol of your new life, and look around the trading yard one last time. You see the faces of the men you fought alongside, the men you trained. You see the palace where your journey began. You take a deep breath of the dusty air. Then, you turn your back on it all and walk towards the gate. For the first time, it is not being opened to march you to a fight. It is being opened for you to leave. You step out into the city, a free man, blinking in the bright sun of a world you now have to learn to live in. You walk through the city streets, a free man. The rudies is tucked securely in your belt, a constant, reassuring weight. The noise of the city, once a distant, muffled sound from within the walls of the ludus, is now a vibrant, overwhelming symphony. The smells of baking bread, cheap wine from a tavern, and the press of the crowd are intoxicating. For the first time in years, you are anonymous. No one is staring at you. The gladiator, you are just another face in the crowd. A man with a weathered face and a network of scars that hint at a hard life. But what do you do now? This is the question that haunts every retired gladiator. The great challenge that follows the great escape. You have spent your entire adult life in a highly structured, brutal, and artificial world. You know how to fight, how to survive in the barracks, how to please a crowd. You do not know how to be a shopkeeper, a craftsman, or a farmer. Your options are limited by your past. The stigma of having been a gladiator, even a famous one, never truly fades. You are rudiarius, a respected figure in some circles, but in the eyes of the Roman elite, you will always be an ex-performer, a man who fought for the entertainment of others. Certain professions, like politics or high-ranking military positions, are forever closed to you. Many freed gladiators chose to stay in the world they knew. This was the safest and most logical path. Your skills are highly marketable in the right context. The most common career path was to return to your old ludus, not as a slave, but as a paid employee. You could become a doctor, the head trainer. using your hard-won experience to shape the next generation of fighters. It offered a steady income, respect within that community, and a life that, while still tied to the arena, was free from the terror of personal combat. You would trade the sword for the training staff. This is a choice many of your brethren made. Indeed, historians believe the majority of rudierii remained connected to the games in some capacity. They were the coaches, the referees sum arudes, the specialists who kept the whole machinery of the games running. Another option was to leverage your fame and your fighting prowess in the private sector. Wealthy Romans often employed bodyguards, and who better to protect you than a man who had survived dozens of real fights? You could find work as a personal guard for a rich merchant, a politician, or even your old laniste. It was dangerous work, but it paid well, and your reputation alone would be a powerful deterrent to any would-be assailant. Some retired gladiators went into business for themselves, often in fields related to their old lives. You could, for example, use the money you saved to open a wine shop or a tavern. Your fame would be a major draw. People would flock to your establishment just to say they had a drink served by the legendary champion. The gladiator's rest or the victor's jug would be excellent marketing. A little-known but fascinating possibility was becoming an actor. The Roman stage loved martial spectacle. Plays often featured dramatic sword fights, and a real-life gladiator could bring a level of authenticity that no ordinary actor could match. You could find a new career, dying on stage every night, a much more pleasant alternative to the real thing. But what if you wanted to leave that world behind entirely? You have your savings. You could buy a small farm in the countryside, far from the roar of the amphitheater. You could live a quiet life, marry, have children, and try to forget the man you used to be. This was the dream, but it was also perhaps the hardest path. Could you ever truly adjust to the slow, peaceful rhythms of rural life? Could you ever silence the echoes of the crowd in your head? The psychological adjustment was immense. You are conditioned to violence, to constant vigilance, to a world of clear-cut rules and hierarchies. The civilian world is a messy, complicated place with subtle social cues you never had to learn. You might find yourself quick to anger, or prone to periods of dark melancholy. The trauma of your past is not something you can simply wash off. Scholars today, looking at the lives of retired gladiators, sometimes draw parallels to modern veterans of war dealing with post-traumatic stress. The challenges of reintegration into society were very real. You stand at a crossroads in the bustling forum. You could go back to the ludus and take the laniste's offer of a coaching position. You could seek out a wealthy patron in need of security. Or you could buy a wagon, head out of the city gates, and never look back. Your past has defined you for years. Now, for the first time, you have the chance to choose your future. The scars on your body tell the story of the gladiator. The story you write from this day forward is up to you. Years turn into decades. You have made a life for yourself far from the sand and the crowds. Perhaps you bought that small farm. The quiet life appealing to you more than the ghosts of the ludus. You are old now. Your hands, once firm around the hilt of a sika, are now gnarled from years of working the soil. The fearsome scars on your arms and chest have faded into a network of pale, silvery lines. Stories that you rarely, if ever, tell. Your children know you only as their father. A quiet man who is sometimes lost in thought, his eyes gazing at a horizon only he can see. One day, a traveling merchant passes through your village, bringing news from the wider world. He speaks of the great changes sweeping the empire. A new religion, once a persecuted cult, is now the faith of the emperor himself. He talks of the Christians and their strange belief in a single, all-powerful God. He mentions that their bishops and priests condemn the old traditions, calling them pagan and barbaric. And he says something that stops you in your tracks in many cities. The games have been banned. You listen to this news with a strange mix of emotions. The world you knew, the world that forged you, that nearly killed you, that gave you your fame and your freedom, is disappearing. The great amphitheaters, those mountains of stone that once roared with the voices of tens of thousands, are beginning to fall silent. The decline of the gladiatorial games was a long, slow process, not a single event. It was a cultural shift driven by several factors. The rise of Christianity was certainly a major one. Christian leaders like Tertullian and Augustine wrote powerfully against the pagan spectacle of the arena, condemning its cruelty and idolatry. As the faith grew in influence, so did the political pressure to end the games. But there were other, more practical reasons. The Roman Empire itself was facing immense challenges. The constant threat of barbarian invasions, economic instability, and political turmoil meant that the vast sums of money required to stage lavish era were becoming harder to find. It was an expensive tradition that a struggling empire could no longer afford. The cost of capturing exotic animals, maintaining the schools, and paying the gladiators was astronomical. The public's taste was also changing. Other forms of entertainment, particularly chariot racing in the great hippodromes, were becoming even more popular. The complex factions of the chariot teams, the blues, the greens, the reds, the whites inspired a fanatical devotion that began to eclipse the old loyalties to gladiator types. The final official gladiatorial contest in the city of Rome is traditionally said to have taken place in the early 5th century AD. The story, perhaps legendary, tells of a monk named Telemachus who leapt into the arena to try and stop a fight, only to be stoned to death by the angry crowd. The Christian emperor Honorius, horrified by this martyrdom, was said to have banned the games for good. Historians debate the literal truth of this story. Was Telemachus real? Did this event truly happen? But it serves as a powerful symbol of the transition. The moral force of the new faith finally extinguished the last embers of the ancient, bloody tradition. You sit outside your farmhouse as the sun sets, the merchant's news echoing in your mind. The ludus where you trained is likely a ruin now. The Laniste is long dead. The names of the champions you fought with and against are forgotten, lost to time like the graffiti on crumbling city walls. The world has moved on. The brutal, complex, and captivating culture that defined your life is now history. It exists only in the memories of old men like you, and in the silent, empty amphitheaters that dot the landscape of the former empire. These vast, decaying structures will stand for centuries, their stones whispering tales of the roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, and the fine, red sand of the arena. They are monuments to a lost world. Your world. You look at the wooden rudies that you have kept all these years, now smooth and dark with age. It sits on your mantle, a relic from another lifetime. It's a symbol of a promise kept, a final victory won not with a sword, but with survival. The sun dips below the hills, and the world is quiet. The roar of the crowd is, at long last, completely silent. The dust of the arena has settled now, a fine layer covering the memories of a life that was both brutal and strangely beautiful. The echoes of the cheering crowds have faded, replaced by the gentle hum of the evening. The tension in your shoulders, a tension you carried for years, finally releases, and a deep, profound peace settles over you. You can feel the cool night air on your skin, a gentle breeze that carries the scent of damp earth and distant rain. The world outside your window is quiet, wrapped in the soft, dark blanket of the night. The journey is over. The fights have been won. The fears have been faced. There is nothing left to do now but rest. Let your mind drift away from the harsh sun of the amphitheater and into the cool, soft shadows of a well-earned sleep. Your thoughts become slow, like honey pouring from a jar, each one softer and more distant than the last. You are floating now, untethered from the past, drifting on a calm, quiet sea towards the shores of your dreams. There is only stillness here. There is only peace. Let the gentle rhythm of your own breathing be the only guide, pulling you deeper and deeper into a restful, restorative slumber. The story is finished. It is time to sleep. The end of the article. Good night.